It is the cold early morning of February 28, 1994, across the scarred landscape of Bosnia. War has been raging for nearly 2 years. Villages lie in ruins. Smoke hangs above shattered cities, and armies of different factions fight desperately for survival and territory. Above it all, the United Nations has drawn an invisible line in the sky, a no-fly zone, enforced by NATO. In theory, no military aircraft may operate here. In reality, the air is anything but quiet. AI secret airbase deep in Bosnian Serb territory. 6 Soko J-21 Jastreb light attack jets prepare for takeoff. The J-21, a relic of Yugoslav engineering from the 1960s, is small, underpowered, and outdated compared to modern Western fighters. Its cockpit has only the most basic instruments. Its engines are noisy and weak, and its armament is limited to unguided bombs and guns. Yet, in the hands of determined pilots, even an old warhorse can still be deadly. The leader of this small squadron is Major Ranko Vuk. He is a veteran pilot, respected by his men, and determined to fulfill the orders given to him. Destroy a weapons factory in the Bihać region. Intelligence suggests the factory is supplying enemy forces with ammunition and equipment. Eliminating it, his commanders believe, will cripple their opponent's ability to fight. But the mission carries immense risk. Since April 1993, NATO aircraft have patrolled the skies under Operation Deny Flight. Backed by airborne radar and advanced fighters, they have the authority to engage any violators of the no-fly zone. Vukmirovic knows this. Every man in his formation knows it. Still, orders are orders, and the 6 Jastrebs taxi to the runway. One after another, their engines roar to life. With a burst of acceleration, the jets leap into the sky. Their wings glint faintly in the rising sun as they skim low across the rugged Bosnian countryside. The pilots keep their altitudes dangerously close to the ground, hugging valleys and rivers to stay below radar detection. Their formation is tight, their radios mostly silent, each man lost in his thoughts. For nearly 30 minutes, the plan seems to be working. The NATO radars have not detected them, or so they hope. But as they approach the target, the pilots face a dilemma. To release their bombs, they must climb. Staying low means safety, but no attack. Rising higher means they will be seen, and once seen, they could be hunted. At 2,000 meters altitude, the Jastrebs level out. Bombs are armed. The target factory is now only minutes away. The men tighten their grips on the controls. 50 miles to the west, aboard an E-3 Sentry AWACS, circling high above the Adriatic Sea, radar screens suddenly flare to life. 6 unidentified contacts appear. Their speed, altitude, and bearing leave little doubt. Hostile aircraft. The AWACS controller relays the information instantly to a pair of American fighters patrolling nearby. Black Flight UF-6 bogies, bearing 324.52 miles, altitude 7,000. Flanking the reply comes cool and professional. Copy that. 2 F-16 fighting Falcons, sleek, powerful, and armed with cutting-edge missiles, bank sharply toward Bosnia. Their mission until now has been routine. Patrol the skies, enforce the no-fly zone, deter violations. But this time, the situation is different. The Serb jets are not just flying illegally. They are heading directly for a strike. In the cockpits of the Jastrebs, Major Vukmirovic receives a chilling transmission. American aircraft ahead of you. His stomach sinks. He looks up and sees 2 faint white trails across the pale blue sky. They are not mirages. They are contrails, proof of NATO fighters streaking toward his formation. For a brief moment, there is silence on the intercom. Each man waits for his commander's word. Vukmirovic takes a deep breath. I see them, he says calmly. Let's go. In previous encounters, NATO jets have often observed, but not fired, warning intruders instead of engaging them. Perhaps, he thinks, this will be another one of those times. Perhaps the Americans will watch but let them finish their mission. It is a fragile hope, but it is all he has. The F-16's close in rapidly. Their speed almost unreal compared to the lumbering Jastrebs. As they roar past the formation, The Serbian pilots exchange nervous jokes. American Ferraris. One mutters. Another chuckles. Did you see those old Yugos? Ha! But the laughter is hollow. Deep down, every man knows the truth. The hunters have arrived, and the hunt is only beginning. The 6 Jastribs push on their engine strain as they hold formation, climbing higher now, abandoning the safety of the valleys. In the cockpits, each pilot feels the weight of what they are about to do. Their mission is not symbolic. It is not a mere show of force. They are here to destroy a weapons factory that their commanders believe fuels the enemy's resistance. Major Ranko Vukmirovic steadies his breathing. Through the canopy, he sees the outlines of buildings, roads, and smokestacks drifting into view below. The target is close, so close that adrenaline courses through his veins. Behind him, 5 young pilots follow his lead. Each of them knows the risks, yet none turns away. The formation begins to split into pairs. It is an old tactic, taught in Yugoslav flight schools. Attack in waves, forcing defenders to divide their attention. But there are no defenders on the ground today. Only NATO fighters above. Vukmirovic speaks into the radio. Arm your bombs. One pass, then we're out. Switches click. Green lights flash on the panels. Old optical sights technology, more at home in the 1950s than the 1990s, are adjusted by gloved hands. There are no computers to guide these bombs, no GPS, no precision targeting pods. Everything depends on eyesight, judgment, and timing. Far above them, the 2 American F-16s cut across the sky like predators circling prey. Captain Robert Wilbur Wright in one jet, Captain Scott O'Grady in the other. They have received the latest order from a WACS, weapons free, but for the moment, they hold their fire. They want to see what the Serbs intend to do. Down below, the Serbs intend to finish their mission. The target factory drifts into the crosshairs. At 2,000 meters, Vukmirovic gives the call, release. One after another, the Jastribs unload their 550-pound bombs. The heavy steel casings drop away from the wings, whistling downward. A heartbeat later, and massive explosions tear through the compound. Walls collapse, flames rise, smoke billows upward. From his cockpit at the rear, pilot Zlatan Kornelic calls out, his voice tight but triumphant. Target is hit. The formation banks. Their mission is complete. Against all odds, the antiquated aircraft have struck true. But in the same moment, the Americans receive their confirmation. On the radio, the AWACS controller reports, they dropped bombs. The reply is immediate. Understood. You are clear to engage. Weapons free. For Wright and O'Grady, the restraint is over. Now, the no-fly zone is not just words on a political document. It is a battlefield order, and they are the enforcers. The 2 F-16s accelerate. Their afterburners, blazing blue, with radar locks. Achieved. They swing around behind the retreating Serb jets. In the cockpits of the Jastribs, tension rises. The young pilots glance over their shoulders. Tiny specks in the sky grow larger too fast, too precise to be anything but American fighters. Kornelic whispers to himself, "They're on us." Major Vukmirovic tries to rally his men. "Stay calm, we're turning for home. Keep formation." But formation means little when the hunters are faster, better armed, and already in firing range. High above, the NATO pilots line up their shots. Through their heads-up displays, the Serb jets glow like targets on a video screen. The difference between the machines is staggering. The Jastrib, with its unguided bombs and decades-old avionics, and the F-16, a fourth-generation, multi-role fighter, bristling with missiles and radar. It is not a contest, it is an execution, waiting to happen. Yet in this moment, the Serb pilots do not waver. They do not break apart, though they could scatter. They do not eject. They fly on, trying desperately to reach their base. Back in the Serbian cockpits, some try to convince themselves perhaps NATO will only warn them, as before. Perhaps they will be allowed to escape, with nothing more than a show of force. But that illusion is shattered by a single sound. Beep, beep, beep. Radar warning tones scream in the headsets of the trailing pilots. An American has them locked. The hunt is about to begin. The 6 Jastrabs turn for home. Their mission is complete. The factory lies in ruins, and for a brief moment, there is pride among the Serbian pilots. Against impossible odds, they have struck their target and are racing back to safety. But safety, in the sky, is an illusion. Behind them, the 2 American F-16 fighting Falcons close in with astonishing speed. The difference between the aircraft is almost cruel. The Jastrab, a subsonic jet from the 1960s, plods along at less than 500 miles per hour. The F-16, designed for modern dogfighting, can push past Mach 2. It is as if bicycles are being chased by sports cars. In the cockpit of the lead F-16, Captain Robert Wilbur Wright is calm, focused, and deadly. His heads-up display glows with data, his radar painting clear tracks of the fleeing formation. "I've got the trailers locked," he reports. His thumb rests on the firing button. The AWACS voice crackles in his ear, cleared to engage. Wright squeezes the trigger. Fox 2. A Sidewinder missile leaps from his wing. The weapon streaks forward, homing on the heat signature of the nearest Jastrab. Seconds later, impact. The Serbian jet erupts in fire, fragments scattering across the sky. A parachute blossoms below, proof that the pilot has ejected. Panic ripples through the Serb formation. Kornelik sees the fireball in his mirrors. "We're hit. They're engaging," he shouts. But there is no time to mourn, no time even to react. Wright has already launched again. Fox 2. Another Sidewinder races forward. Another explosion fills the sky. 2 Jastrabs are gone in less than a minute. Now Captain Scott O'Grady, in the wingman F-16, swings into position. He lines up his shot. Fox 2. A missile shoots ahead, slamming into a 3rd Serb jet. The pilot ejects, tumbling into the cold air. O'Grady circles, seeking a second target. But technical glitches frustrate him. Still, his first kill is undeniable. Within moments, 4 of the 6 Serb aircraft have been destroyed. The survivors break formation, each man desperate to live. Engines scream as they push their throttles forward, but the gap between predator and prey is too wide. The Jastrabs cannot outrun what is behind them. Major Vukmirovic, at the front of the group, realizes the truth. He has lost 2/3 of his squadron. His men are parachuting into hostile territory, their jets reduced to burning wreckage. He pushes his aircraft lower, trying to escape radar coverage, praying that the Americans will not chase the last 2. Miraculously, they do. Not with fuel to conserve and rules of engagement to follow. The F-16s disengage. Wright and O'Grady have made their point. 4 enemy jets lie destroyed. The no-fly zone has been enforced not with words, but with missiles. For NATO, the significance is enormous. This is the first time in its history that the alliance has engaged in combat. The first time its pilots have fired in anger. And the result is decisive. The skies above Bosnia are no longer symbolic. They are a battlefield controlled by NATO. For the Serbs, the loss is devastating. The Jastrab squadron was small to begin with, and now nearly destroyed. Worse, the message is clear. NATO will no longer stand by. Any violation of the no-fly zone will be punished with force. Major Vukmirovic lands what is left of his squadron hours later. His aircraft is battered, his body exhausted. He has completed his mission, but at a staggering cost. The factory may lie in ruins, but so do 4 of his jets. And the war in Bosnia rages on. High above, in the debrief rooms of NATO, the tone is different. The mission is hailed as a success, a validation of the no-fly zone, and a symbol of NATO resolve. For Captains Wright and O'Grady, it is a moment etched into history. They have proven that NATO will act when challenged. The date, February 28, 1994, will be remembered as the day NATO drew a line in the sky and enforced it with fire. The Banja Luka incident becomes the alliance's first aerial victory, a reminder that even in the chaos of the Balkans, the balance of power in the skies was decided not by numbers, but by technology, training, and the will to act. As night falls on Bosnia, the fires from the downed aircraft still smolder in the fields. Survivors are rounded up. The captured pilots become prisoners of war. and the message spreads quickly. The skies are no longer safe for those who defy NATO. In the end, the mission that began with 6 pilots seeking to change the war with bombs ends with 4 jets destroyed, 2 pilots fleeing, and NATO's dominance confirmed. It is not just an air battle, it's a turning point in modern air power history. November 29, 1943. The chill of winter hung over northern Germany as more than 300 B-17 flying fortresses crossed the sky. Their mission, Bremen, a city shielded by flak batteries, fighter bases, and thick industrial smoke. Inside one of those bombers, nicknamed Ricky Tikki Tavi, 10 young men braced themselves. At the controls sat First Lieutenant Linwood Langley, only 21 years old, but carrying the lives of his entire crew in his hands. Behind him, navigator Jesse Orison checked his maps while the bombardier Donald Curtis adjusted his sights for the run ahead, then the very back. Tail gunner Eugene Jean Moran sat hunched inside his glass bubble. The world outside was silent and cold, but Jean knew that any second the sky could ignite. The warning came suddenly over the intercom. Bandits, 12 o'clock high. From the front, a formation of twin-engined Messerschmitt Bf-110s charged directly at the bombers. Beneath their wings, each carried a weapon new to the Americans. 21-centimeter rockets, meant to smash open the tight defensive box of fortresses. Trails of smoke cut through the sky as the rockets whooshed past, exploding among the formations. A fortress off to their left erupted in flames and spun down toward the earth. Langley gripped the yoke tighter as one rocket streaked past his cockpit. "Hold steady, boys. Keep the formation tight." The Bf-110s roared through, their cannons flashing. In an instant, the sky became chaos. Jesse Orison leaned into the cheek gun and fired, while the top and ball turrets spat streams of tracers. In the rear, Gene squeezed his triggers and filled the air with .50 caliber fire, forcing one of the attackers to break away. But the worst was still coming. Tiny black specks appeared in the distance. More fighters. Messerschmitt Bf-19s and the dreaded Focke-Wulf 190s slicing down from above like hawks. 5 o'clock high. Lots of them, Gene shouted. The fortress shuddered under the strain of battle. Shell casings clattered across the floors. Voices overlapped on the intercom positions. Warnings, frantic calls for help. And then, as if the sky itself had turned against them, the first blossoms of flak burst around the formation, thick puffs of black smoke, each one a deadly explosion. The crew gritted their teeth. Ahead was Bremen. They still had bombs to drop. The formation pressed on, battered by both fighters and flak. Every second felt like an eternity. From his position, in the cockpit, Langley could see the lead plane lining up over the target. Smoke from factories below billowed up through the clouds. Bremen's defenses were throwing everything they had. Inside the bomb bay, the doors rumbled open. Bombardier Donald Curtis leaned over his sights, waiting for the moment to release. "Bomb bay open," he reported. "Just drop the damn things already." Someone muttered over the intercom. Then the lead ship released. Curtis pressed the switch. Bombs away. The massive bomber shuddered as the load fell free. The fortress instantly felt lighter, climbing slightly as if relieved of its burden. Below, the bombs tumbled toward the city, disappearing in the haze. "Close them up," Langley ordered. The doors creaked shut. "All right, boys, let's take her home." But there was no relief yet. The black clouds of flak followed them out, pounding the sky in angry bursts. Fighters darted in again, unwilling to let the Americans escape without further loss. Gene's hands were numb from the vibration of the guns. His vision blurred from hours of tension, yet he kept firing. A Focke-Wulf streaked past his sights. He squeezed both triggers, tracers chasing the German machine as it vanished into smoke. All around them, fortresses were falling, engines on fire, wings snapping off, parachutes opening far below. But somehow, Ricky Tikki Tavi kept going. Langley called for a damage check. "Navigator, okay. Ball turret, okay. Couple of holes in the wings, Lieutenant, but we're still flying." For a moment, relief swept through the crew. Against all odds, they had dropped their bombs and were still airborne. But as the echo of those words faded, another call rang out. Bandits, they're back. A fresh wave of fighters swooped in. The battle wasn't over. In fact, for the men of Rikki-Tikki-Tavi, the worst was yet to come. The Luftwaffe returned in force, pouring down from the sky. Dozens of fighters slashed into the formation, cannons blazing. The intercom filled with shouts. 2 o'clock high, 6 o'clock, closing fast. They're everywhere. The entire box of fortresses lit the sky with traces, but the enemy pressed in. Explosions rocked the air as bombers fell away. Streaming smoke dot in the rear. Gene fired until the barrels glowed red. ABF-109 shot past, then another. He couldn't tell if he hit them, only that the air was alive with death. Then Gene noticed something terrifying. Their plane was drifting back. The gap between Rikki-Tikki-Tavi and the main formation was growing wider. "What's going on?" he yelled into the mic. "We're slipping behind." There was no answer from the cockpit. Engines still roared. Wings held steady, yet the bomber was losing ground. One voice finally came over the intercom. "We're being pushed out." Whether it was the captain or co-pilot, Gene couldn't tell. Within minutes, Rikki-Tikki-Tavi was alone. A solitary fortress in enemy skies. The worst fate possible. The Germans pounced from the ball turret below. Gene's closest friend, Wilbert Pee Wee Provost, screamed, "Mo! He's coming up right at us, straight up our tail." Gunfire ripped through the belly of the plane. Gene heard his friend's cry cut off by shattering glass. A twin-engine Messerschmitt roared past the tail, guns blazing with fury. Gene opened fire. His .50 calibers tore into the German fighter, smoke trailing from its fuselage as it spiraled away. But the victory felt hollow. The intercom was silent. One by one, voices that had filled the bomber only hours earlier faded. The fate of Rikki-Tikki-Tavi and her crew was sealed in fire and silence. Far above Bremen, for Eugene Moran, the memory of that day never faded. Decades later, even as he tried to recount the events, emotion would choke his words. What happened inside that fortress was more than a mission. It was a story of youth, courage, and sacrifice in a sky filled with death.
In the early 1970s, the United States Air Force faced a dilemma. The fighters of the time, like the F-4 Phantom, were powerful and reliable, but too large, too expensive, and not agile enough in close dogfights. What the Air Force needed was a lightweight, affordable, and maneuverable fighter, yet still deadly in combat. From this requirement, the lightweight fighter program was born, and it gave rise to the F-16 Fighting Falcon. When it first flew in 1974, the F-16 stunned the aviation world. Its design was futuristic. Small delta-shaped wings, a slim body, and an advanced fly-by-wire system that was revolutionary at the time. This digital flight control system allowed pilots to execute extreme maneuvers with precision. On top of that, the bubble canopy offered an unmatched 360-degree view of the skies, giving the pilot situational awareness like never before. Officially entering service in 1978, the F-16 was initially intended as a lightweight dogfighter. But over the years, it evolved into a true multi-role fighter, capable of air-to-air combat, ground strikes, reconnaissance, and more. Its affordability compared to heavier jets made it widely accessible. Within just a few years, the F-16 was exported across the globe. More than 25 allied nations adopted it, and production numbers reached the thousands, an achievement rarely seen in modern aviation. More than just a machine of war, the F-16 became a symbol of aerial dominance. It flew in conflicts across the Middle East, the Balkans, and Asia, proving that it was not only cheap and agile, but also dependable when it mattered most. The evolution into the Viper. Even after 4 decades of service, the F-16 never became obsolete. The secret lies in continuous modernization, which led to the newest and most advanced variant, the F-16V, known as the Viper. Introduced in the early 2010s, the Viper brought sweeping upgrades. The most significant was the AN/APG-83 ESA radar, a game changer. Unlike older radars, this active electronically scanned array could track multiple targets simultaneously, resist heavy jamming, and even detect stealthy threats. With it, the F-16V gained the ability to face modern air challenges head-on. The cockpit was also transformed. Gone were the analog dials and switches of the Cold War era. In their place, a large, full-color multifunction display, advanced data, link connectivity, and a helmet-mounted cueing system, allowing pilots to lock onto enemies just by looking at them. When it comes to weapons, the Viper is formidable. With 11 hardpoints, it can carry long-range air-to-air missiles, GPS-guided, smart bombs, anti-ship weapons, and more. It can still reach speeds near Mach 2, though in modern warfare, speed is often less important than versatility. Perhaps the greatest advantage of the F-16V remains its low operating cost. While the F-35 requires billions of dollars for procurement and maintenance, the Viper can deliver strong performance at a fraction of the price. This makes it the fighter of choice for nations like Taiwan, Greece, and Slovakia, who need modern air power without breaking the bank. Thanks to these upgrades, the F-16 was given a second life. From a Cold War lightweight fighter, it transformed into a fully capable 21st century combat platform. A legend that refuses to fade. As of 2025, the F-16V remains one of the most relevant combat aircraft in the world. While fifth-generation fighters like the F-35 and F-22 dominate headlines, the F-16 is still more numerous, more widely used, and continues to prove its worth. Many analysts call the Viper a bridge between fourth and fifth-generation fighters. It may not have full stealth like the F-35, but with its AESA radar, advanced avionics, and ability to deploy precision weapons, it can seamlessly integrate into modern combat networks. In fact, in many exercises, mixed formations of F-35s and F-16Vs have proven devastatingly effective. The success of the F-16 also underscores an important philosophy. Advanced technology doesn't always have to come with an extreme price tag. For many air forces, having a larger fleet of affordable, capable fighters is far more practical than owning only a handful of expensive stealth jets. How long will the F-16 remain in service? Some predict it will continue flying well into the 2040s, perhaps longer, thanks to continuous modernization. But one thing is certain. The F-16 has already secured its place in history as one of the most successful fighter aircraft ever built. From Middle Eastern deserts, to the mountains of the Balkans, to the skies of Asia, the roar of its engine has marked turning points in modern warfare. The Viper is not just an aircraft, it is a legend. And as long as the world needs a fighter that balances cost, flexibility, and power, the F-16 will continue to fly, carrying with it a legacy that refuses to fade. Ardennes, Belgium. The early hours of December 18, 1944. A cold mist clings to the valleys as the sound of heavy treads shatters the silence. Down the narrow road towards the town of Stavelot, a German armored column pushes forward. They are Kampfgruppe Piper, part of the 1st SS Panzer Division. Their mission is clear: capture the bridge over the Amblev River and break through deeper into Allied territory during what would become known as the Battle of the Bulge. Leading them is Joachim Piper, an SS officer riding inside a massive King Tiger tank. The Tiger II is a monster on the battlefield, thick armor, devastating firepower, but it is painfully slow. Piper knows that to secure the bridge quickly, he needs speed. "Bring up the Panthers," he orders. 2 Panther medium tanks roar, ahead, breaking from the column. Their engines thunder as they race down the road, steel tracks hammering the pavement. They head straight for the bridge, a vital crossing that could decide the fate of the attack. But the Americans are waiting. Hidden along the approach, a 57mm anti-tank gun has its sights set. The moment the lead Panther rounds the bend, the gun fires. The shell slams into the engine, erupting into flames and blocking the road. The second Panther does not hesitate. It accelerates, smashing past the burning wreck of its twin, and returns fire. Its cannon roars, obliterating the American gun position and scattering the crew. The way forward is open, but at a price. The Panther presses on, its machine guns raking American defenses. Soldiers scramble for cover, firing rifles, bazookas, anything they can to halt the steel beast. But at this range, most shots bounce, harmlessly off the armor. One by one, the American positions are silenced. With the path clear, Piper signals his Tiger to advance. 60 tons of armored steel grind across the bridge, each movement shaking the ground. The crossing is theirs, but Piper knows this is only the beginning. Fuel. His panzers are thirsty beasts, and without fuel, they are nothing but metal husks. The next target, an American fuel depot just north of Stavelot, but the Americans will not give it up so easily. Ordered to fall back, the American commander leaves one final gift behind: destruction. Moments later, the sky erupts. Thousands of gallons of gasoline ignite in a massive fireball. Storage drums explode, sending shockwaves across the valley. From a distance, Piper can only watch as the lifeblood of his advance goes up in smoke. He is furious, but powerless. Without those reserves, his timetable slips away. Still, he refuses to stop. He pushes his column westward, leaving only a thin garrison to hold Stavelot. A gamble, and a dangerous one. Hours later, the rumble of engines echoes again. The weary German defenders strain to see. Are their reinforcements finally arriving? The truth is far worse. From the northern hills, American reinforcements descend. Sherman tanks, M10 tank destroyers, and fresh infantry. From the high ground, they open fire. Shells rain down into the town, ripping through German positions. Machine guns chatter, artillery crashes, and the fragile defense begins to collapse. Stavelot becomes a cauldron of fire and steel. A town once quiet in the Ardennes is now a battleground, a harsh reminder that in war, ambition without fuel can doom even the most powerful VE armies. July 1942. The desert of North Africa is silent, the kind of silence that swallows even the sound of men's thoughts. Under a moonless sky, a convoy of 18 jeeps moves slowly across the sand, their engines muffled, their lights blacked out. The men riding inside are no ordinary soldiers. They are members of Britain's fledgling Special Air Service, commanded by a tall, determined officer named Major David Stirling. The SAS is still new to the war. Many in the British Army consider it reckless, a unit that sneaks behind enemy, lines to carry out raids few others would dare. But Stirling believes in his vision. A small, mobile force that could cripple the Axis war machine where it hurt the most. Tonight's target is bold. The column is heading deep into enemy territory. Over 200 miles beyond British lines, to strike a German airfield. The Luftwaffe relies on these bases to dominate the skies of North Africa, and destroying just one could change the balance. Still, the night feels tense. Stirling sits at the front of his jeep, his eyes scanning the horizon. He knows they're close, but the landscape is vast, empty, and unforgiving. He mutters under his breath, "Where is it? The airfield should be right here." Suddenly, the darkness is shattered. Bright lights blaze across the desert, flooding the night with artificial day. For a moment, Stirling thinks the worst. They've been discovered. But then, the roar of an engine echoes overhead. A German aircraft is descending, preparing to land. The airfield has revealed itself. On Stirling's left, Captain Paddy Mayne, already a legend among the men, grins at the sight. Beside him sits Lieutenant Carol Mather, alert and steady. On the other flank rides a small contingent of Free French paratroopers, commanded by André Zernheld, a man eager to prove himself in the fight against the Axis. Stirling leans forward and gives the order they've been waiting for. Time to work, gentlemen. The soldiers check their weapons. Each jeep carries twin-mounted Vickers K303 machine guns, one in the front, one in the rear. When the command comes, these guns will unleash a storm, unlike anything the Germans expect. Then Stirling utters the words that define the Says. "Who dares, wins." Engines roar to life. The convoy surges forward across the sand, their formation tightening as they approach the airfield. At 800 meters out, the jeeps align into a perfect line, Stirling at the center, Zernheld's Frenchmen on the flank. They are no longer a scattered convoy. They are a spearhead, and then the desert explodes. The first bursts of tracer fire streak into the night, red and white lines carving through the darkness. Within seconds, the entire line of jeeps is firing, 68 machine guns spitting. Thousands of rounds per minute. The firepower is staggering. The very frames of the jeeps rattle under the recoil, while streams of bullets cut across the runway. To the Germans on the ground, it feels like a wall of fire racing toward them. Planes, sitting vulnerable on the tarmac, erupt in sparks and flames. Incendiary rounds ignite fuel tanks. The shrieking chaos of engines, tracer fire, and exploding aircraft drowns out all thought. Above, a German Ju-52 transport circles, caught in the nightmare. Forced to land amid the storm of bullets, it touches down on a runway already lit by burning wrecks. In desperation, German defenders cut the airfield lights, plunging the desert back into darkness. But for Stirling and his men, the raid has only just begun. The desert goes black again as the German defenders switch off the floodlights. But it doesn't matter. The British and French commandos have already seen their target, and Stirling knows the next phase must begin. He raises the flare gun and fires into the sky. The round arcs upward, bursting into a green glow that washes the battlefield in eerie light. "Forward!" Stirling shouts, engines growl. The jeeps surge past the edge of the runway and onto the heart of the airfield itself. Two neat columns form, just 15 feet apart, a rolling wedge of firepower cutting straight into the German position. Stirling's vehicle is the point of the arrowhead. To his sides, André Zernheld and the French SAS push hard, keeping perfect pace. The men unleash hell. Their twin Vickers guns chatter without pause, spewing bullets at nearly 1,000 rounds per minute. The fire rakes across the airfield, tearing into anything that bears the black cross of the Luftwaffe. The first victims are the Stuka dive bombers. Sleek, menacing aircraft that once terrorized Europe now burst into flames one after another. Next, the line of Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters, the pride of German air power, falls under the torrent of gunfire. Their thin fuselages shred easily under concentrated fire, wings snapping, engines erupting in fireballs. But the raiders do not stop there. Bombers, transports, night fighters, Ju-88s, Bf-110s, Ju-52s, everything is destroyed in a blur of muzzle flashes and detonations. For the German ground crews, panic reigns. Many are caught in the open, scrambling for cover. Some duck beneath the very planes they had been preparing for flight. It proves to be a fatal mistake. Bullets rip through the thin aluminum skin of the aircraft, cutting down anyone hiding beneath. Others scatter toward the bunkers, but the fire is relentless, sweeping in arcs that leave no safe haven. One soldier, Stephen Hastings, would later describe it. First, a cautious burst, and then, all at once, the full fury of our guns. The airfield transforms into a nightmare landscape. Explosions punctuate the night, each one sending plumes of smoke rolling into the desert sky. Fire spreads from aircraft to fuel drums to ammunition crates. The acrid stench of burning aviation. Fuel mixes with the sound of twisting metal and screaming engines. From above, the German Ju-52 that had been forced to land sights helpless. Its crew frantically kills the engines and extinguishes cockpit lights, but the transport is trapped on the runway. Moments later, it too is shredded by fire, its fuselage ripped apart until flames engulf the aircraft completely. In less than 20 minutes, what had been a proud German airbase is reduced to chaos. Dozens of planes, carefully prepared for combat, lie in ruins. The Luftwaffe presence in this sector of North Africa has been crippled in a single stroke. And yet, Stirling knows the operation is not over. The SAS cannot linger. They are deep behind enemy lines, and once the Germans recover from the shock, retaliation will come swiftly. "Keep moving," Stirling calls, waving the column forward. The jeeps continue their deadly circuit, blasting any remaining aircraft, ensuring nothing can be salvaged. Flames leap higher, casting ghostly shadows across the desert. The men reload drum magazines on the move, their hands working with the precision of veterans. For the Germans, the ordeal feels endless. For the raiders, it is only minutes. The airfield is burning, and now comes the most dangerous part of all: the escape. As Stirling signals the withdrawal, the jeeps begin to peel away from the blazing runway. their engines straining under full throttle. Behind them, the airfield continues to burn, a beacon in the desert night, visible for miles. The men know the Germans will rally. Patrols will hunt them. Fighters may be scrambled from other airfields, but the SAS is built on risk, and tonight, their gamble has paid off. With the desert wind carrying the smell of fire and fuel, the raiders vanish once more into the darkness, leaving behind nothing but wreckage, smoke, and fear. The airfield burns behind them, flames devouring what had once been one of the Luftwaffe's proud desert strongholds. For the Special Air Service, the work is done. But survival now depends on disappearing back into the vast emptiness of the Sahara. Major David Sterling knows the danger. He has led his men over 200 miles into enemy territory. If the Germans manage to cut them off, there will be no rescue, no reinforcements. The desert is both ally and enemy. It hides them in its vastness, but it can also swallow them whole. The jeeps roar back into the night in tight formation. Their drivers push the vehicles hard, bouncing over dunes, engines screaming under the strain. The gunners keep their weapons ready, scanning the horizon for headlights or the faint glint of enemy armor. Every man knows that the Germans will respond quickly once the shock of the raid wears off. Behind them, the glow of the burning airfield still lights the sky. It will be a beacon for patrols, a signal of humiliation that the Luftwaffe cannot ignore. Somewhere out there, German convoys are already being scrambled, desperate to intercept the raiders before they vanish. Inside his jeep, Paddy Mayne wipes the sweat and sand from his face. He laughs grimly, shouting over the roar of the engine. "That'll give Jerry something to remember us by." His comrades grin, but no one relaxes. They know how thin the margin between success and disaster truly is. The convoy pushes deep into the desert, choosing routes no conventional force would dare attempt. Navigation is carried out by compass and instinct, with the stars above as guides. At times, the jeeps switch off their engines and roll down slopes in silence, conserving fuel and avoiding detection. At other moments, they race at full throttle, kicking up sand clouds to throw off pursuit. As dawn approaches, the desert reveals its other enemy: exhaustion. The men have been awake for days, nerves stretched tight by the raid. Supplies are limited. Fuel, water, and ammunition must be rationed carefully. Yet the adrenaline of survival keeps them going. Reports later confirmed that German patrols searched furiously, but they never caught the SAS column. The raiders had slipped away into the desert wilderness, leaving their enemies with nothing but smoldering wreckage and bitter frustration. By the time Sterling and his men reached friendly lines, the scale of their success became clear. Dozens of aircraft had been destroyed in a single night: Stukas, Messerschmitt fighters, bombers, transports, representing weeks of German effort and untold resources. For the cost of fuel, bullets, and sheer daring, the SAS had crippled Luftwaffe operations in the region. The raid was more than just a tactical victory. It was a statement. A handful of men in lightly armed jeeps had done what conventional armies could not: strike fear into the heart of a superior enemy. The Germans now understood that their airfields were never truly safe. For André Zernheld and his French comrades, the raid was a symbol of France's continuing resistance. For Mayne and Mather, it was proof that Sterling's vision of special forces was not madness, but genius. And, for Sterling himself, it was validation. The SAS had found its place in the war. In the month that followed, the SAS would carry out many more such raids, each one testing the limits of endurance and daring. But it was this July night, in 1942, that marked the turning point, the moment when a small band of men in the desert rewrote the rules of warfare. The motto of the Special Air Service, whispered by Sterling before the raid began, now echoed across North Africa.
It is May 17th, 1944. In the humid skies over Burma, the American 80th Fighter Group, better known as the Burma Banshees, is preparing for yet another mission. Their aircraft, Curtiss P-40 Warhawks, decorated with menacing skulls and sharp fangs on the nose, have earned a reputation for striking fear into the enemy below. At the head of this four-ship formation is Lieutenant Phil Adair, a veteran pilot with sharp instincts and hard-won experience in the unforgiving skies of the China-Burmandia theater. Today's mission: a ground attack strike against Japanese positions hidden beneath the thick canopy of the Burmese jungle. As the flight of P-40S roars low over the treetops, bursts of anti-aircraft fire flicker from below. The jungle floor is alive with battle. Chinese troops, trained by American advisors, locked in desperate combat with the Japanese army. From the cockpit of his P-40, Adair watches the chaos unfold beneath him. Sweat trickles down his back as he grips the stick, steadying his machine. There they were. Adair would later recall. Chinese forces pinned down, fighting for their lives. We had one job: to help them by tearing apart the Japanese on the ground. Adair pushes his nose down. The jungle rushes up. Around him, his wingman follow in tight formation. From the ground, Japanese soldiers squint up into the blinding sun. What they see are skulls, painted jaws wide open, fangs bared, diving straight at them. The Banshees release their deadly cargo. Explosions ripple across the battlefield. The earth trembles as the bombs slam into Japanese positions, sending plumes of dirt and fire into the air. The mission seems to be going to plan, until Adair looks up, high above the canopy. Slicing through the sun-streaked clouds are enemy fighters, sleek, fast, and deadly. The Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0. And there are a lot of them. Adair counts quickly. More than 3 full flights, over 15 aircraft, diving toward the P-40s. Outnumbered nearly 4-1. The Banshees are about to be dragged into a brutal dogfight. 3 flights of Zeros, Adair later described. They weren't after me. They were after my wingman, O'Connor, and the 2 less experienced boys. So I shouted over the radio, "Bandits." 11 o'clock. O'Connor, whom Adair called Little Okie, was still green, and Adair knew he wouldn't stand a chance if caught off guard. He barked another order. "Little Okie, you're about to be jumped. Drop your tank and bombs, then break right into the clouds." But things immediately went wrong. O'Connor dumped his bombs, but his fuel tank jammed. 4 Zeros were already closing in on him. Adair watched helplessly as O'Connor snapped his Warhawk into a sharp turn, disappearing into the cover of thick white cloud, with enemy fighters on his tail. Seconds later, both friend and foe vanished from sight. That left Adair alone, staring down the rest of the Japanese formation. 4 Zeros broke off and fixed their sights on him. The air around his cockpit suddenly felt heavier. He knew the odds. The Japanese fighters were faster, more maneuverable, and above all, there were more of them. But Phil Adair wasn't about to run. Pushing the throttle forward, he pulled his Warhawk into a climbing turn, heading straight for the enemy. The fight for survival had begun. The humid clouds over Burma swallow Lieutenant Phil Adair's Warhawk as he pulls hard on the stick. His aircraft shudders under the strain. Behind him, 4 Mitsubishi A6M0s close in fast, their machine guns flashing. The P-40 is not as agile as the Japanese Zero, but it has one advantage: durability. Where the Zero is light and fragile, the Warhawk is a flying tank, built to take punishment. Adair knows this. He plans to use his aircraft's toughness and firepower to survive the onslaught. "I knew I couldn't outturn a Zero," Adair recalled, "but I could dive faster, and I could hit harder." That was the Warhawk's strength. The first tracers whiz past his canopy. Instinct kicks in. Adair slams the throttle forward, pushing his plane into a steep dive through the clouds. The Warhawk screams as it plummets airspeed, climbing past 350 miles per hour. Behind him, the Zeros give chase, but their lighter frames struggle to match his sheer velocity. Breaking through the cloud layer, Adair spots the jungle rushing up beneath him. He levels out just above the treetops, the roar of his Allison engine echoing through the valley. The Japanese fighters are still there, 3 of them tight on his tail, with another circling overhead. He yanks the stick left, then right, throwing his Warhawk into violent jinks. Bullets tear through the air around him. A few rip into his fuselage, sparking against the armor behind his seat. His cockpit shakes with every hit. "They were chewing me up," Adair said. "I could hear the rounds hammering the bird, but she kept flying. That P-40 saved my life." Suddenly, an opportunity. One of the Zeros overshoots, flashing past his nose in a blur of green and red markings. Adair seizes the chance. He jerks the Warhawk into a climbing turn, rolling behind the enemy. The Japanese pilot realizes his mistake too late. Through his gun sight, Adair sees the Zero's silver belly filling the frame. He squeezes the trigger. The 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns roar, their tracers stitching a deadly line across the sky. Sparks explode along the Zero's fuselage. Its engine bursts into flames. The enemy fighter rolls inverted, trailing smoke, before plunging helplessly into the jungle below. One down, but there's no time to celebrate. The other Zeros swarm back in. One dives from above, cannons blazing. Another sweeps across his path, trying to force him into a turning fight he cannot win. Adair jerks his Warhawk into a defensive spiral, his vision blurring under the crushing G. Sweat drips into his eyes, his hands locked tight on the stick. Every second is survival. Every maneuver, a gamble. Far above, the battle rages on. The rest of the Banshees are scattered, each pilot locked in their own desperate fight. Radio chatter fills Adair's ears, frantic calls for help, shouted warnings, and then sudden silence as voices are cut short. And then, through the chaos, a thought pierces Adair's mind. What happened to little Oki? His wingman had vanished into the clouds with 4 zeros on his tail. No word since, no signal, no hope. That the thought hardens into resolve. Adair grits his teeth, banks his Warhawk into another dive, and turns his guns on the enemy once more. This fight is far from over. The sky over northern Burma is a battlefield of smoke trails and roaring engines. Lieutenant Phil Adair's Warhawk shudders with every violent maneuver. Bullet holes pepper his wings, and the smell of gasoline lingers in his cockpit. The enemy is relentless. 2 zeros circle above, while another stalks him from behind. Adair can almost feel the enemy pilot's eyes locked on him, waiting for the perfect shot. "They had me boxed in," Adair said years later. "It was like being a fox in a pack of hounds." Suddenly, a stream of tracers cuts across his canopy. The Zero behind him has opened fire. Adair throws his Warhawk into a snap roll, the heavy fighter groaning as it twists through the air. Bullets rip past, some striking the fuselage, others smashing through the tail assembly. For a moment, it seems hopeless, but then, an opening. The Zero that had been circling overhead dips too low, misjudging Adair's dive speed. Seizing the moment, Adair yanks back on the stick, pulling his P-40 into a brutal climbing loop. The G-forces crush him into his seat, vision narrowing to a dark tunnel. Through that tunnel, he sees his prey. The Japanese fighter fills his gun sight. Adair squeezes the trigger. Once again, 6.50 caliber Brownings roar to life. Tracers slice through the air, slamming into the Zero's wing root and cockpit. The enemy explodes into a ball of flame, disintegrating in midair. 2 down, the victory is brief. The other Zeros are closing fast. One rakes him with cannon fire, a shell tearing through his left wing. Smoke pours from his damaged fuselage. The Warhawk groans under the strain, but somehow, it holds together. She was bleeding oil. She was full of holes, Adair recalled, but she kept flying. That's the kind of bird the Warhawk was. He dives again, skimming just above the treetops. The jungle canopy rushes past beneath him, a green blur. The Zeros follow, their engines screaming as they weave between bursts of flak still rising from the battlefield below. Adair throws the Warhawk into a sharp right turn, almost clipping the trees. One Zero tries to follow too tightly and pays the price. Its wingtip brushes the treetops, sending the fighter tumbling into the jungle in a fiery crash. 3 down. But Adair isn't untouched. His Warhawk rattles with every movement. Oil pressure is dropping. Ammunition is running low. And still, the Japanese keep coming. In the radio static, there is no word from little Oki, no sign of his wingman. Adair knows what that silence means. A knot forms in his stomach. Anger replaces fear. He shoves the throttle forward, pulls his Warhawk skyward once again, and turns to face the enemy head-on. This battle is no longer about survival alone. It is about vengeance. The sky is filled with smoke, fire, and the roar of engines. Lieutenant Phil Adair's Warhawk is battered, leaking oil, and riddled with bullet holes. Yet it still flies. Ahead, the final Zero swings back into the fight. Its pilot is patient, disciplined, circling for the killing blow. Adair knows the Japanese aircraft outmatches him in maneuverability. If he fights on the Zero's terms, he will not live to see another dawn. "I had one card left to play," Adair later said. "Dive, hit hard, and pray the old bird held together." The Zero dives first, cannons flashing. Explosions hammer across the Warhawk's right wings. The aircraft lurches, nearly stalling. Adair grits his teeth, pushes the nose down, and plunges toward the jungle below. The airspeed needle climbs dangerously high to 360, 380, 400 miles per hour. The Zero follows, but the Warhawk's sturdier frame gives Adair the edge. The lighter Japanese fighter begins to tremble, struggling to keep up. At the last second, Adair pulls into a screaming climb. The G-forces crush him. His vision darkens. Sweat pours down his face. But through the haze, he locks eyes on the enemy. The Zero flashes past, overshooting. For one heartbeat, Adair has the advantage. He steadies the gun sight, his hands trembling on the trigger. The moment feels frozen in time to pilots, to machines, locked in a duel that will end in seconds. He fires. 6 streams of tracers converge on the Zero. The rounds tear into the engine, ripping the fighter apart in a fireball that lights the sky. Shards of metal rain into the jungle. 4 down. But victory comes at a cost. His Warhawk is barely holding together. The cockpit smells of burning oil. Control cables are frayed, hydraulics failing. Adair knows one more hit could tear the plane apart. He scans the sky. Smoke trails twist across the horizon, but no more Zeros remain. Silence settles in his headset. His breathing is ragged, his body heavy from exhaustion. And then, reality hits him. Little Oki is gone. His wingman, his friend, had vanished into the clouds at the start of the battle. No voice on the radio, no flash of a friendly silhouette, no hope. The jungle below holds its secrets, but Adair knows the truth. That was the hardest part, he admitted years later. We could replace planes. We couldn't replace men. With trembling hands, he turns the crippled Warhawk toward home. The mission is over, but the war is far from finished. As the battered fighter limps across the Burmese sky, one thought steals his resolve. If the Banshees are to survive, men like him must keep flying. Even if every flight feels like the last dot. The battered P-40 Warhawk limps across the skies of northern Burma. Its fuselage is shredded, its wings scarred with cannon fire, its engine coughing smoke with every turn of the propeller. Inside, Lieutenant Phil Adair sits slumped, his flight suit soaked with sweat, his body bruised from the brutal GI forces of aerial combat. He has survived but barely, but below him, the Burmese jungle stretches endlessly, a sea of green hiding the wreckage of countless battles. Somewhere beneath those trees lies the silent grave of his wingman, Lieutenant Little Oki. Adair cannot bring himself to look down for long. The loss weighs heavier than the damage to his aircraft. "I flew back alone," Adair would later recall. "The cockpit was quiet, too quiet. I'd gone into that fight with a friend, and I was coming back without him." As the Warhawk nears the Allied airstrip, mechanics and ground crews rush to the runway. They can see the holes punched through the aircraft, the smoke trailing from its tail. It seems impossible that the fighter could still be airborne. Adair eases the crippled plane down. The wheels screech against a dirt runway, bouncing once, twice, before finally holding. The Warhawk shudders, then rolls to a stop. Silence follows, broken only by the hiss of leaking hydraulics. When the canopy opens, Adair climbs out slowly. He is pale, exhausted, and trembling. Yet the men who surround him see more than a survivor. They see a pilot who has returned from the jaws of death, who faced 4 enemy aircraft alone and lived to tell the tale. But Adair himself feels no triumph. The image of his wingman's empty place haunts him. The price of victory is written not only in enemy wreckage, but in the silence of the comrades who never returned. The Banshees of the 80th Fighter Group would fight on in Burma. Their howling Warhawks striking fear into Japanese forces across the jungle front. For them, each mission was a gamble with death. And yet, stories like Adair's inspired others to climb back into the cockpit, day after day, knowing that survival was never guaranteed. Decades later, historians would look back on the skies of Burma as one of the most grueling aerial battlegrounds of World War II. And among those stories, the duel of Lieutenant Phil Adair stands as a testament to the courage, resilience, and sacrifice of Allied pilots. War isn't glory. Adair once said in a rare interview, "It's endurance. It's hanging on when the odds say you shouldn't." That day over Burma, I wasn't a hero. I was just a pilot who refused to quit. The Warhawk that limped back that day was patched up and sent into battle again. But for Adair, the scars of that mission remained long after the smoke cleared. In the end, his story is not only about machines and dogfights, but about men who rose into the skies knowing they might never return, and who carried the weight of both survival and loss for the rest of their lives. And so, the legend of the Banshee's cry over Burma lives on.